So good morning everyone, welcome to Satsang. Like usual, our internet is going up and down, so bear with us. Let's make some silence first. Whatever has happened, whatever it is, deem it unimportant. Whatever comes tomorrow, unimportant. Remaining here, in this moment, untouched by the urges of tomorrow, I remain. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about a plan for beginners and not so beginners, a way to organize yourself to take the best out of your time. So when the calling comes, and depending if you're into spirituality or not, if you're not, it can bring a lot of confusion and not so tangible confusion. You don't know why, but confusion is there, difficulty is there, and you kind of get lost. And if you're in spirituality and the calling comes, and I'm not speaking about curiosity, a calling, that calling from the heart, then this tends to be taken into the life that you are having, and you're trying to adapt yourself, searching a little bit, but maintaining most of your life as it was, and slowly making some changes. And what this makes is, it makes you waste a lot of time. So for those who are in this situation, usually there is an urge to do something, to find, to get, and this is very important, this urge. But usually this quest goes out into the world, seeking this and that to see whatever resonates with that calling. But that is not the best way. There is a more direct way, a way that makes you use better your time. So, like I said previously, usually life goes on, the same investments that were there for security, relationships, and prosperity and whatever, and slowly, spirituality enters kind of like a hobby or something, but the general course is maintained. So for those who are in that situation, who are having the call in their hearts, the best thing is to make a pause into life, to pause it. And I say pause because letting go is quite difficult, especially in that moment, even if it doesn't make sense. But for those who have a calling, a sincere calling, their lives may turn out to go some opposite or completely different direction that it was going. And the more you hold on to those things, the more difficult it is. Or it can just continue as it was. You don't know. So for that, it is that pausing of your life is important. It is very important because you can use better your time and you can intensify your practices. For the majority that are in this situation, especially if it is the beginning of life, security is not something which is, how do you say this, secure. Right? So there is fear connecting to this, there is an urgency to establish, but usually that is just a matter of the perspective that you have in this moment. Because there's a lot of ways that you can do this. Okay? So it seems that internet has fallen down again on Facebook and YouTube. Instagram still on because it is a different connection. Let's just wait a little bit. Já voltou? Avisa quando tiver. Okay, let us continue here because I'm there leaving. So according to where you are, to your conditions, something is possible. Or you can pause totally or partially. But whatever you continue depending on your needs as an income, if you cannot stop completely, just get a part-time, but not something that has a future, that you can invest and grow in that. Just something that provides you the necessary income to maintain the complete basic. So whatever you're doing now is supporting the lifestyle that you have. But into this vision, you just need sleep, eat, and meditate. So whatever is there that is to support something other than these three, then cut it, put it aside, because the less expenses you have, more time you have to meditate, less time you will need to work. So this organizing your own retreat, it is very important. Much more important than to go to places, involve with places, certain types of retreats. It is better for you to make your own. And the more time you can dedicate to this, the better. If you have a chance to leave where you are, leave it. Go somewhere no one knows you, so that you don't have too much disturbances, because those people that are used to being with you, to contact you, will continue, and that is a disturbance. You see, you can say to everybody that you're taking this time to yourself, and that you can leave one day, for example, a week or something, so that people may contact you, so that they don't become worried, and their worrisome brings agitation towards your retreat. So keep things in a way that you don't get disturbed, that you have the basics that you need, so that you can focus as much as you can. If you're not in relationships, don't go into relationships, stop to search. If you are, well, use your creativity and the present circumstances the best you can so that you can remain undisturbed. So learn a meditation technique, something simple that you can practice for long periods, and open up for this calling that is coming into your heart. Open a room there so that guidance can come, so that direction can come, and surrender as much as possible to this. Envision at least 1 year. If it's not possible now, if you don't have no one to support you, create the circumstances for this. Simple living, reduce the space that you need is not so much, just a place to sleep and meditate. So it will not, if you're depending, if you don't have a place of your own, it will not be that expensive. And the more away from the big cities, the better, so it is cheaper. And if you have means for it, good. If you don't, get a part-time, something simple, like putting things on a shelf or something like organizing things, something that doesn't occupy too much. And put your retreat, this period of 1 year, completely devoted to this, to open yourself to that calling, to open yourself to guidance, so that direction to your life, to yourself comes. Because usually what is done is life continues normally, and you start looking and reasoning what it is and how to go, where to move, and this takes a lot of time. If you use your time to intensify meditation and to be open for guidance and direction, then it will come. It's like you're using your mind. You have 10 possibilities, for example, whatever it is. But whatever you choose, you're not really convinced that it is, because it's from here. But if you open yourself, direction will come from within, and then there's nothing to question, just follow it. So this is the shortest, the more straight path. Because a lot of time is wasted as this comes and life continues the same way, and there's preservation, attachments here and there. It's not about cutting everything and forgetting about everything, just giving it a pause, so that your spirituality, this inner reality, can grow and can become alive and can give direction. Because if life continues, it will be much more difficult, and distractions will be at its highest. So in this situation, you can reduce 90% of distractions. That is a lot. Not everything, because it is impossible, but 90%. Sometimes it's not possible to do it immediately. So preparing, getting the vision of what you need for this moment, for that retreat, for that period, and making a plan. If I'm not being able to do this right away, what would be the steps that I would need to make this happen? You have places, of course, that receive people and that you can meditate, ashrams, or how do you say this, communities, spiritual communities and all of that. But that is not really the best in the beginning. You need to find your inner direction. And for this, the less confused it gets, the better. And then, if from that inner connection, the direction comes to go to a place like that, okay. But not from here. So it is better for you to use what you have at hand, create those circumstances, and take that time to intensify your spiritual practices, to begin and intensify depending. And this is worth for everybody, more or less. Even if for those who are long-term seekers and find themselves stuck, it doesn't go anywhere. You can do this also, and it will be very profitable. Because, like I said, life is there and it is distracting. And if you're keeping the same, so that means you are keeping the same motivations you had previously. And this will be countering your quest for freedom, that calling which is coming. And the calling is different from curiosity. There are people that come into contact with spirituality and they are curious about it. They want to know more, and this and that, and their path goes like this. But there are others that there is the calling, and the mind most of the time is not even prepared for this. This is the real calling, the real process. Because the seeker of truth doesn't really decide to go. He is called. One of the biggest difficulties, it is the vision you have of your life, that it is the way it is and there's no other way for it to be. It's very difficult people have this difficulty to imagine different scenarios. And sometimes people say, they go to a retreat and they say, how can I take this to where I was? And I have to ask, but do you have roots instead of legs? Because you're free to go wherever you want, apparently. And these ideas that I lived in those circumstances in that place, and that is the only reality. And to move beyond this vision, for the majority of people, it is very difficult. For those who are already used to traveling, going to India and this and that, it is more easy. They don't have these problems. But others do. And to break these images, it is very important, because this is very big limitation. And normal life usually wins. What this means is, despite your best interest, your best intentions, normal life, old investments tend to win. So for this to be different, for you to win, you have to use your intelligence to understand the level of the game that you are playing, the level of difficulty. And maintaining focus, a high level of focus, it is very important. If you just take things lightly, then you'll be just absorbed again into the currents of normal life. Doesn't matter if it is a normal life in a spiritual context or in a worldly context. It doesn't make a difference. Because I'm talking about the call for the quest for freedom. For freedom's sake, not for a more spiritual life. These things are different. One doesn't necessarily means the other. And whatever is there as a calling, it is a small seed. And this seed needs the utmost caring so that it can sprout. As it sprouts, it needs to be more taken care of, protected, so that it can grow. When it grows, big, strong, then it is more easy in a way. These these previous things are not as needed as much. And as you create these circumstances, intensify as much as you can. Night and day, follow a rhythm. First establish a rhythm, the number of hours of sitting. Then as it becomes alive, you just let it flow, let it flow. But pulling to intensify more and more your practice. To sit longer, longer and longer with a rhythm, with a discipline, with times, at the same amount of time that you are sitting, and if you increase, you maintain it, just continuing like this. And eventually you will need less sleep, then you can meditate more, and then it will become alive. And you will get guidance, inner guidance. So whatever needs to happen, it will be much more faster. Less distractions, more probabilities to succeed. And this is the language that can be used for those who are in the beginning and into these conditions that I've described. Because the life that you're having now, it's just one life. Look around you. People are having different lives. Very different, very different. So everything is possible. Everything is possible. And time is the most precious thing that the seeker of truth has. So he needs to make the best use out of it. And it is always time for this. Even if you're not a beginner, but you're in those conditions that it seems that the process doesn't become alive, doesn't grow, there's no life in it. And if you understand that, in a way, you can see that life has distracted you, that you were sucked into circumstances that are more difficult now. You can still do this. Depending on the circumstances, it can be more difficult. Usually it is, because the more time it passes, the more difficult it becomes. Because life tends to put nets around you. Responsibilities, this, that. And it becomes more difficult because that's its purpose, is to distract you, to absorb your attention into it, so that very little or nothing is there for the spiritual practice. And this idea of doing two things at the same time, it can work depending on the seeker, but if the seeker has this inner calling, this thing that is bringing restlessness, intense restlessness, then this two things at the same time is not for you. Because thirst is coming intensely and it is a calling. So it is a different path. So the more you can connect with this, the better. And instead of just diving into whatever direction comes, it can still be the way. It is for many. But it will be much more difficult for you to trust it. As you sit and you go within and you intensify your practices, things will come as guidance, not as chance. So it will be more easy for you to trust. Still, there will be difficulties, but it will be more easy. Because when the process becomes alive, it is quite different. So at least 1 year of intense practices, whatever is possible for you, if you can just dedicate 1 year to it, good. If you have to get a part-time or something to maintain yourself, well, if that's what you have, it's not that bad. You can still make a very big use of your time. But in that way, you will have to make different arrangements, be careful with certain things. So that line of work should not be too much mentally demanding, and with as less of confusions and relation with others, the better. So that you can make the best use of your time. And doing retreat, you don't have to eat too much also. So everything, the costs go down. So this is more or less a plan for those who are getting the call in their hearts, being pulled and don't understand what is happening. Because the first impulse, or one of the first impulse when people get into this position is, I understand by this restlessness that it is here, for example, that whatever I'm doing now, it's unsuitable. I don't like it. And it is completely different from this direction. So what they tend to do is to establish already in something, to feel safe, and then to work. And this usually tends to lead you to circumstances that may not be the best ones. You're jumping in stages. So this is not good, and I could give a lot of examples of this, but so it is much better for you, instead of jumping with your head, just take the time to plan something that you don't depend on others. Well, if you have your parents to support you, okay, just be thankful and respectful and honor that support, but make sure that nothing, not even them, can disturb this time. This is very important. If you don't, then think it over carefully. Prepare yourself. That vision that life is like this and you have these bills to pay. Okay, there's bills to pay. So what is that you really need from all those things? And when you go down this road, there's no limitations in what you can cut. Absolutely no limitations. Limitations are just relative. Now you can see I can cut this and that and that. After a time of practices, you'll see that you can cut more things. But okay, do what you can now. Think about the conditions, the place, in terms of that retreat, and make it happen. It will be a very useful time for sure. And it can prevent a lot of confusion in your life and a lot of time wasted. Even you can, in those periods, you can go for meditation retreat, Vipassana, for example. It is very good because, well, there is the philosophy there, but they don't bother you too much. And you can have the conditions, the place, and the routine to meditate 10 hours a day with that technique. And then when you leave the retreat, you can continue with that technique, or not, you can take up the previous one that you were using. But it is a very good place for spiritual practices. But don't don't get attached to it. Not now. Give it that time. If you feel that you should continue to practice, then do. But the thing is, don't get attached to anything specific. Just use the meditation to intensify, to make your fire start, and use it. Keep yourself open to direction, so that direction may direct your attention. If it is to whatever it is, this spiritual practice, that philosophy, this philosophy, whatever it is, let it come from within. Just use your time to silence, to intensify your meditation, to purify, make your vibration as high as possible. Don't try to decide what you will do tomorrow, what will happen after this time. Wait. In terms of future, of continuity, wait for direction. And for the one who learns to be this way, to turn within, to work intensely, to wait for guidance, there's no confusion, there's no, how do you say this, the multiple options. You can focus continuously, because when any change needs to come, guidance will direct. And for sure, after this period, or even before, things tend to show themselves. A seeker of truth has to be in a way that he is always ready to stay where he is, and he is always ready to move somewhere. He maintains no attachments anywhere. He is not trying to establish a future, a certain future. It doesn't matter if it is worldly circumstances or a spiritual circumstance. He's not trying to establish anything, because whatever comes from his mind, he knows that this is illusion bound. It is something to maintain you distracted. So he keeps his mind silent, clean, pure, so that guidance can manifest there distinctly. And for the one who is like this, no confusions, because he is not deciding anything, just following guidance. Okay, so that's it for today. Next satsang will be Wednesday, 9 o'clock in the morning, Brazilian time, UTC -3. Till then, make the best use of your time, reflect, intensify your practices, make it real for you.